Everybody that is normally logging in at 9 in our community for our nightly Bible study. This is not a replacement for that by any stretch of the imagination. I just realized that I wanted to try to get our secondary stream going, if not every day, but especially dealing with something in the apologetics world. And that said, I had really grandiose plans today to get more videos out, and unfortunately, uh, I was doing a honeydew list that V didn't actually ask me to do today. It was the fact that I've been putting it off for I don't know, call it like a year and a half, doing it very slowly, and so instead, I've been working exceptionally hard at getting it complete. So instead, I figured we would use this 15 minutes or so before our live stream, and we're going to be talking about First Peter chapter 1 today. That I would walk through a basic apologetic that frankly I think most believers and non-believers have dealt with at one point in time or another. And so that's ultimately faith and reason. And because as as I put in the description of well, all the different places that this is streaming, is ultimately belief in Christianity isn't irrational. It is absolutely rooted in evidence. It is rooted in so many things outside of purely just irrationality or fear or anything along those lines. And so, you know, let me give you an example to start, because I think anytime in apologetics, if we can focus on simplifying, right? What's the old acronym KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. If we can attempt, I guess we could probably find a better S. Keep it simple, maybe silly. I don't know. If we can keep it simple, then we're going to be a lot better off, and it's going to be a lot simpler to apply it across many different scenarios. And if it's a rock solid principle, that's going to work. So we trust people with all sorts of our items, our things, right? We'll trust them with uh, you know your car keys. You go, hey, I trust you. Go ahead. I think it'll be fine. Your buddy, your friend, whatever the case is, and maybe they get in a crash, maybe they don't. I've personally had it happen before. No joke. You can ask V, where we lent to one of our friends our car when we were out of town. We come back, and there is literally a probably 18-inch crack on the windshield. And we call him up and we're like, hey, buddy, what happened with the windshield? He's like, what windshield? and, and so, is that to say that he was maliciously attempting to do that? No. Was it a big deal? No, it wasn't. Um, when Jason, you were saying today, and one of your coworkers wanting you fired, this is small potatoes compared to that. Uh, but I think the idea is we're so willing to trust others, to share with others, and uh, but when we start talking about something so unbelievably important, in fact, you would argue the most important thing that you are going to deal with, which is your eternity, and yet now all of a sudden we're not even necessarily going to trusted sources to understand, is this true or is this not true? And I will give you a really simple idea here. And I didn't come up with this. This is like in apologetics 101. But if you want to disprove Christianity, if you want to disprove uh well, yeah, just the faith as a whole, then disprove the resurrection. Now, good luck. That's been happening for 2,000 years. And in fact, Paul in scripture even talks about the fact that if there's no resurrection, then then there's no Christianity. And honestly, at that point in time, then Christianity is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time, lasting a couple thousand years, and billions of people fell for it. So, for us, if you really want, if you're struggling with your faith, either you say, I don't have a faith, I don't have a belief right now, or you're saying I have one, but I don't know, I'm struggling through it at the current moment, then then go back to the resurrection. Go back and dig into who Jesus is. Because if you dig into who Jesus is and you dig into his resurrection, as Dr. Gary Habermas said, I hope you guys checked out that interview. The world's preeminent scholar on the resurrection. He said, even if there are all sorts of issues going on with scripture, there's not. But let's just say that you believe there's contradictions. You believe there are all these uh, kinds of untruths and fallacies and postulates and whatever. It still doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if the resurrection is true, then Jesus is Lord. And if Jesus is Lord, then everything changes. Everything transforms, and your life is going to be different. And if the resurrection isn't true, then again, then Christianity is the greatest Ponzi scheme of all time. 2,000 years and billions of people. So, so why start with the resurrection instead of, well, uh, I don't know, RB. The fact is that I don't like the fact that God said something about homosexuality, or I don't like he said something about uh, women being pastors, or I don't like the idea of tongues, or whatever. Right? It could be a multitude of different criteria. That doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what the criteria is. It's ultimately, though, if we're not dealing with the most important aspect of something, what we call first importance, right? It's like if you are traveling with your family. So V and I have 5 kids, and when we're traveling with our family, what's the number one first importance thing? Safety. that that we get if we're that we get all of us there, all of us alive. Hopefully, we all still have our arms and legs and all of our members and digits and all of that. Now, that said, what would be a secondary importance? That we get to where we actually want to go. Like, that we're not sidetracked, we're not going a whole, multitude of different places. Maybe third or a tertiary importance could be something like the kids behaved well. We made it a productive time. We had fun. And so when we attempt to make a decision on something like Christianity and our faith, and we're focused on secondary, tertiary, I don't even know what the fourth would be, fourth dairy issues, then and not the one that actually matters, we are setting ourselves up for absolute catastrophic disaster. And so I would offer, in my experience, and as you guys know, if you've followed any of our live streams, I did not grow up in a family of believers, and so the issues that were brought up when I was growing up were moralistically rational issues. Moralistically meaning, what do we as a society deem to be okay, which is certainly very different than what scripture says most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. And so, uh, in if we look at scripture, we say don't cuss, don't say profane words and profane things. Uh, and it says, and Jesus says, adultery is looking lustfully at a woman. In our society, we don't say that. We say, if you actually have a physical relationship with somebody else that's not your spouse, that would be adultery. But again, difference between biblical versus a moralistic society. And so when we look at when I grew up, it was always seemingly rational, illogical, moralistic arguments that were made against Christianity. There was never one conversation I had growing up with anybody in my family that was like, you know what? It's not true because Jesus didn't rise from the dead. That was never a conversation. The conversation was, well, can you believe how they don't treat everybody equally, or can you believe how prejudiced they are? Can you believe how sanctimonious they are? It was, and so that is realistically, that's an emotional that's an emotional argument. Jeremy corrected me, or he gave me the answer. Uh Quaternary. Okay, so tertiary quaternary. All right. I learned something today. Thank you, Jeremy. Uh and and so, for us, when we are considering this, when we are thinking about this, and I had to dig into this from my own upbringing, is if we're not dealing with first importance issues, I'm not saying secondary and tertiary issues aren't important, but they're not as important. They're not the thing that you're resting your cap on. If you're resting your cap on of your faith in Jesus on, well, I think he was a good teacher, or I was a moral guy. That that is that is a house built on incredibly shifting sand. Yes, he certainly lived a sinless life, and you could say that he was in that sense perfect. Yeah, okay, great. But that's not the reason, right? Because he called out, well, actually, we could go all the way to the Old Testament and look at the all of the prophecies about Jesus. Go to Isaiah, go to Ezekiel, and you could see that this is happening hundreds of years before Jesus came to earth and lived and then died and then was resurrected. So, it doesn't pass muster. It doesn't hold its weight when we're talking about the Lord, the incarnate God, right? And so I I want everybody here, especially because we've got like 3 minutes until we'll hop over to our Bible study. But you know, we have we have so much evidence for for the resurrection. We have so much evidence. In fact, there's nobody in antiquity that we have more evidence for that lived than Jesus. And in fact, we even have scholars that are not believers, guys like Bart Ehrman, who is a distinguished New Testament scholar. He says there is no question Jesus walked the earth, and he even says that there's no question he was crucified. And I'm pretty sure it's Bart Ehrman also that said there's no question that he did miracles. Uh, Now, where he gets his sticking point is the actual resurrection itself, but I would encourage all of us to, as we're going through this, and especially as we're using these little chunks of time to think about our faith and what would be relevant and what would be needed with people around us. Man, I would really, really, really encourage you to think about when somebody brings something to you. First of all, is this a first importance issue, or is it secondary, tertiary, or quaternary, as Jeremy shared with us? And then second, is this a logical argument? Is this a emotional argument? Or is this a theological argument? And once you diagnose those, and you can and look at it like a decision tree, and you go, okay, I got it. This is a first importance issue. All right, keep going to the next part. And now, what kind of an argument is this? Is this emotional? Is this theological? If somebody is willing to actually sit down with you and chat and really go through the nuts and bolts, the good news is the evidence is already there. And I would encourage everybody, and I'll leave on this note, that ultimately, well, let me say it this way. Your doubt, any doubt that you have, if you have any doubt going on right now, uh, you are not alone. We certainly have Thomas. We call him Doubting Thomas. Poor guy. He gets a tougher, kind of a tough rap there. But John the Baptist, he had doubt. He had his servants go and ask Jesus if he was the Messiah. Right? Peter had doubt. He's walking on water and he has doubt, and all of a sudden he starts sinking. So if you have some doubt right now, or if you're struggling with something, one, look for the first importance issues, and let that prove your faith for you. And if you don't have that faith right now, but you want to have some faith, but you're struggling, you're in good company. You're in good company. Take it to God, lay it at the cross, pray, and I truly believe amazing things will happen. So, anyways, thank you. I'm gonna hop over to our Bible study now. So come join us. It'll be on, well, it'll also be on Rumble as well and all the other streaming platforms. So, all right, be blessed, guys.